Everyone is talking about the MJ Akbar Priya Ramani case these days, especially the lawyers. Some say it was a defamation case, but it was tried as a sexual harassment case instead. Others quip that, evidence could have been led in a different manner and that the unnecessary focus on Section 65B of Indian Evidence Act compliance was not really required. I don't know what you think about it, but I most definitely feel that to make an informed opinion, one needs to know the arguments which were rendered by both the parties. Hi, I'm Pallavi Pratap and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about MJ Akbar Priya Ramani case, and it is my endeavor to take you through the arguments in the matter. But before we start with those, let me tell you brief facts of the case first. 2017-2018, the Me Too movement started from across the world. Women came out in open to point out the sexual harassment meted out to them in the hands of their bosses, colleagues, or a person of influence in their life. Now, Mr. MJ Akbar at that point in time was the Minister of State for External Affairs, and Ms. Priya Ramani was an editor formerly working with Reuters, and she used to write articles for Vogue and other prominent publishers. Now in India at that point in time, actresses called out Bollywood producers, directors and actors, while women from different industries started to call out the abusers. Now in the realm of journalism, many female journalists came out in the open, and amongst other names that were taken off the abusers, Mr. MJ Akbar's name came out in open, and Ms. Ramani tweeted one of her articles that titled "To Harvey Weinstein's of the World." The first 4 paragraphs of this article described her interview with MJ Akbar when she was a fresher and had gone to apply for a job. She had very vividly described how she had met Mr. Akbar in the year 1993, and he had asked her to meet in Oberoi's at Nariman Point at 7 p.m. That evening. And she was excited about the interview and had then called upon her friend with whom she discussed possible questions, current affair and salary expectation. When she reached the hotel, she called up Mr. Akbar's room through the house phone, and Mr. Akbar asked her to come up to his room instead of maybe conducting an interview in the lobby. Now she says that it was more of a date and less of an interview. He offered her a drink, which she politely refused, and he sang old Hindi songs. The bed was turned down for the night, and he gestured her to sit next on a tiny space. She said she was fine, and then tried to escape the room on a pretext. So when she reached home, she called up her same friend that she had spoken to before the interview and told her about the whole incident that took place, where Mr. Akbar was drunk and was offering drinks to her. And they finally decided that they would not disclose it to their parents, because otherwise she would not be allowed to work. So this friend is called upon as defense witness too. In the subsequent paragraphs of the article, she's written on sexual harassment in the workplace, and she's quoted that you are an expert on obscene phone calls, texts, inappropriate compliments, and not taking no for an answer, among other things. She's attributed this to male bosses in general. She tweeted the article with, "I began this piece with my MJ Akbar story. Never named him because he did not do anything. Lots of women have worse stories about this predator. Maybe they will share." Several other tweets followed where other women called out Mr. Akbar and shared their stories. And since the story was garnering a lot of attention, a lot of publishing houses started to write articles on it. Now, Mr. Akbar was out of the country at that point in time, and when he came back, he subsequently resigned and then filed a defamation case against Ms. Ramani, where he said that it was basically malicious and it maligned his reputation. On the basis of this, and the pre-summoning evidence, Ms. Ramani was summoned by the court of ACMM, and it was primarily under the offence under Section 500 IPC. She pleaded not guilty and the trial commenced. Now, the complainant had produced witnesses who were primarily his colleagues or friends and who had worked with him. He deposed that publications amounted to damaging a lifetime of good reputation that he had over 50 years. And Ms. Ramani had produced about, I think, 2 defense witnesses, one being her friend in whom she had confided the incident in the year 1993, and the other one being another colleague of Mr. Akbar who had claimed to be a victim of his predatory ways, and she had very vividly described about the sexual harassment that was meted out to her. Now, the issues which were raised while examination in chief and cross examination took place pertain to certain specific arguments that we discussed later on. One of them, which was raised, was pertaining to the 65B certificates under the Indian Evidence Act, and this was primarily pertaining to screenshots, and that certificate which was given was not as per the provisions of the Indian Evidence Act. There was also a lot of emphasis which was made by the complainant's counsel on why Ms. Ramani deleted her Twitter account while the trial was on, and can that be considered as destruction of evidence. Now, one of the defense witnesses had given a very vivid description, like I said, DW3, and also one of the arguments which was raised as far as the evidence of DW2 was concerned was with respect to the fact that this could be considered as a hearsay evidence. Now, let us try and examine the submissions which were made on behalf of the complainant. The first and foremost submission which was made on behalf of the complainant was that he enjoyed a stellar and impeccable reputation, and that the tweets and articles which were published by the accused, herein being Ms. Ramani, they were primarily meant to malign the complainant and lower his reputation, and that all of these tweets and articles, they were primarily published in bad faith. Now, the second argument which was raised by the complainant was with respect to the article specifically which was published in Vogue, and the contents which were there in the said article. Now, while the first 4 paragraphs insinuate Mr. Akbar, the later paragraphs, as per the author, which is the accused in this case, were casting aspersions on male bosses in general. And if one reads it, it could look like as if it was about the acts of Mr. Akbar in particular. So it was not specifically about male bosses, but it looked like an insinuation which continued entirely. Now, the complainant's side submitted that it appeared that the complainant himself was, an accused in the matter, and not vice versa, since it appeared as if, the complainant, that is Mr. Akbar himself, was on trial. This was one of the arguments that was put forward. They also argued that there was no CCTV camera footage which was shown as far as the hotel was concerned. No call records to show that DW1, DW2 actually spoke with each other, or any kind of supporting documents. And also there was one other argument that the accused did not prove the presence of complainant in the hotel on that given specific date. Now, the evidence also that specifically of DW2 was considered to be inadmissible because it was a hearsay evidence. They also argued that it becomes res gestae as far as Section 6 of the Indian Evidence Act is concerned, and it is only on the basis of the statement of the accused and DW2 that this whole situation is called out. Now, it was also argued that DW2, after reading the statement of the accused, sort of improved upon her own statement. And with respect to DW3's statement, it was argued that DW3 actually had no relevance with subject matter which was there as far as the present case was concerned, and that if she was a victim, she should have used or made complaint in any other forum which was specifically made for this. Now, they also argued that the accused could have made complaints to any other lawful authority at that point in time, and it was extremely belated stage at which she came. They also relied upon Neelkantan Kamal Snanan versus Achyutan Vasudevan case, where it was held that when truth is set up as defense, it must extend to the entire matter which is published, and it is not sufficient that only a particular portion of the statement is proved to be true. So this was basically the sum and substance of the arguments as far as the complainants were concerned. As far as the submissions of the defense counsel was concerned, the accused pleaded truth as her defense, and she said that the article or the imputation that she's made, it was made in good faith, it was in public interest, and it was for public good. And she said that her case fell under the exceptions which are provided in 1, 9 and 3 of section 499 IPC. And she also very interestingly said that she led evidence for the same on the test of preponderance of probabilities, and that the ingredients of section 499 IPC is not proved and is not satisfied against the accused. Now, the claim of the stellar reputation that the complainant enjoyed was also completely denied, and this was basically on the basis of DW3's witness, and it was further proved, it was further argued that the burden of proof was upon the accused to prove her defense, which falls within the exception of section 499 IPC, and that the standard of proof therefore was required to be preponderance of probability and not the principle of beyond reasonable doubt criteria. So this was one specific important part of the entire argument. The second argument that we see as far as defense counsel is concerned is about the screenshot of the messages which were exchanged between the accused and the DW2. And there was an insinuation that these were done only because they wanted to ensure that there could be legal action against them, and therefore they had used these kinds of messages which were exchanged. But it was also very clearly shown that the screenshot which was there, the production of mobile phone was already done and shown before the court. And therefore, Arjun Kotkar case, which is Arjun Kotkar versus Kailash Kishan Rao case, was applied, and it was stated when the original device itself was produced, the certificate which was required under section 65B of the Indian Evidence Act was completely unnecessary. Now, then we also see that there was also an argument regarding the bona fide of the messages, like I told you, which were exchanged. To this, the argument was that these messages which were exchanged on 8th of October 2018, whereas the complainant has filed his complaint only on the 15th of October 2018. So there cannot be an afterthought in that sense to exchange these messages just to ensure that a case could be made out. Also, there was very interesting argument that was made was that DW2 was a credible and reliable witness, and she deposed clearly and very consistently regarding the incident that occurred in 1993. And this basically corroborates the statement which was made by the accused. Now, there was also a specific emphasis which was laid on the sentence which was, he didn't do anything. Do being the operative word here. This contention, the word do was basically denoting sarcasm as per the defense counsel, and sexual harassment does not necessarily mean that there has to be a physical overt attack. It can be verbal, or it could be just a sexually colored behavior. It could be a text, it could be just a joke, it could be any of these forms. So this was one part of it. And then the defense counsel also argued that Ms. Ramani happens to be a journalist and a very reputed person, and that she had absolutely no reason to make false allegations against the complainant. And as far as the complainant's claim was concerned that he enjoyed stellar reputation, the testimony of DW3 had anyway shattered the entire claim as far as the stellar reputation was concerned. And further, we also see that the witnesses, they basically rejected the entire testimony as far as those of the complainant's witnesses were concerned. Now let us look at what were the basic reasons that were given by the learned court as far as acquitting Ms. Ramani was concerned in this case. Now the court first of all said that it was rejecting the contention that only the first few paragraphs were regarding Mr. Akbar and that the later paragraphs were about male bosses in general. The court held that primarily the entire article does sound like it was an imputation which was made on Mr. Akbar. However, when we move on to the second and the most important reason which was given was with respect to the argument given by the complainant's counsel that where they've attributed that the accused took alternate defense, that such defense is liable to be rejected. However, when the learned judge observes in his judgment, he says that it is settled position of law that accused may take alternate defense. An accused has only to establish the test of preponderance of probability as far as defense is concerned, and they definitely do not have to qualify the test for proving her defense beyond reasonable doubt. Hence, the contention of the complainant regarding taking alternative defense by accused was completely rejected. Now, what is also interesting here is to note that the court accepted the contention of the accused that complainant is not a man of stellar reputation on basis of testimony of the accused and DW3. Now, this is the most important part of a defamation suit, where one is able to show that the reputation which is claimed by the complainant does not really survive. And it further observed that most of the time the offense of sexual harassment and sexual abuse is committed behind closed doors, or they are committed in a private setup. Sometimes the victim does not realize herself that what is it that is happening to her and whether it is right or wrong. Now, I have found the observation in the judgment as very pertinent in current times, especially when the learned judge says that the time has come for our society to understand sexual abuse and sexual harassment and its implications specifically on the victims, and that society needs to understand that an abusive person is just like rest of the other people. The victim of sexual abuse, however, is not like that and is not able to speak a word about the sexual abuse for many years, even decades in this case. They don't speak because there is this shame which is attached to it, there is a stigma which is attached to it. However, the act of sexual harassment basically takes away her dignity and her confidence. The learned judge had also made references to the two great epics, the Mahabharata and Ramayana, and stories from these two great epics have been cited in the judgment. And he's also taken us through the various legislations and UN frameworks that guarantee that women should be provided with safe workplace. Now, the learned judge also had noted that the attack on the character of the abuser is an act of self-defense that a victim takes who has suffered mental trauma and harassment. The woman cannot be punished for raising voice against sexual abuse on the pretext of criminal complaint which can be filed by the complainant at any point in time, in this case being the abuser. And also, as far as defamation is concerned, that does not supersede the right of reputation. Or rather, the defamation cannot be claimed as a right to reputation at the cost of the right of dignity of a woman, which is guaranteed under the Indian Constitution under Article 21, and also right to equality before law and equal protection of law as guaranteed under Article 14 of the Constitution. So finally, after reading the entire 91 pages of the judgment, one realizes that it is not just a defamation suit, but also talks about sexual harassment and comes out very vividly as far as that goes. And finally, of course, the learned judge then held that the case of the complainant regarding commission of offence punishable under section 500 IPC against the accused Miss Ramani could not be proven, and that therefore she is acquitted of the charges which were there. However, it remains to be seen that if Mr. Akbar will be challenging the findings, or will the issue now attain quietus, this is only going to be seen in the future that is there. But this judgment definitely has been thought provoking and has given some form of validation to the entire Me Too movement, which was taken very lightly by certain people, and has definitely strengthened women who have faced sexual harassment. And it is definitely a first, if not a first, but it is an endeavor to have a safe workplace. I hope you will share my video and also like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. Do write to me if you have any queries pertaining to this judgment or any other specific query. My email ID is pallavi.pratap@pratapandcompany.com. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day.